Rory reveals why he parted ways with Julian.
I want to respect Julian, and I want to get into any messy bullshit. Um, but you kind of explain it's a conflict of interest. I think the role gets
Conflict.
a little cloudy. The role gets cloudy when you're also on mic. I don't want a producer on camera ever again for the rest of my life.
I think one of the tensions, you don't have to answer this, but one of the tensions with Julian was that he was an on camera personality. So there could be like maybe their presence on air also overlaps with their actual back end work, and it's like you might really need the back end work. Is it better that he just is straight back end work?
Yeah, that's all I wanted with a producer.
Yeah, on some recent spaces I've done with Rory and Julian, I feel like I've gotten really good insight into what happened between the two parties that would eventually lead to the end of their partnership. For those of you that don't know, Julian was the producer of the Rory and Mal podcast for about 2 years. Well, anyway, as time would go on, he would suddenly disappear from the show, and many would wonder what happened. It seemed like Julian thought he was fired as a result of asking for a raise.
I never approached them with that discussion to like say, hey, I need at least a 2 year commitment to make this work. Like I never that never crossed my mind. No.
Did you ever approach them and say, hey, based on these metrics, I would like more money?
I did.
Do you think that was a catalyst for what happened
Yes.
to you as far as firing? Okay.
Yes.
I think people are missing what was just said. You said you asked for more compensation, and that's when this happened.
One of many. It's not the only thing. Sure. Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that.
But then Rory would say that he wasn't fired for that. He was fired for other reasons. And I tried to find out what that reason was on Spaces. So when Julian and Rory were on my space, I revealed, or I think I got them to reveal, what the truth was. So Rory was talking about Josh, the new producer who works at the Rory and Mal podcast. He was actually coming from the volume.
Because it seems like you work for the volume,
So
but
I'm technically an employee of the volume, yeah.
whoa.
He's essentially a podcast mercenary who now works for the Rory and Mal podcast. And I thought, hey, that's interesting. So you got someone who wasn't your friend, and you also got someone who isn't on air talent. They just produced the show. So then when I asked him why that was, he said that he prefers it that way because things get a little cloudy. And I believe he meant that because, when producers are also on air talent, it could lead to a series of issues. One being extra payment. Now that person, they want to get paid as an on air talent. They don't want to get paid as a producer. They want to get paid as both. They're double dipping and believe that they deserve more compensation. And I also even think the word cloudy doubling as clouty could give some insights into that as well. Right? Remember, Julian was on Twitter shooting shots at Joe Budden. And I deeply believe that Rory and Mal did not want that to be the case. They felt like, hey, just stick to the producing, stick to whatever you're doing. Stick to that, please. Don't make things complicated for us. We hired you as a producer. I know you're on there in talent, but what we need you here for is for you to handle the boards, edit the videos, promote us on social. Also, Julian would join me on Spaces and talk about how he might have heard in the background that Rory and Mal weren't necessarily happy with him being on air talent.
I had asked him
Yeah, he
about.
said something.
I asked him about if what he wanted in the new producer was someone who wasn't on air, and I thought that what he would say after was that yeah, it's a huge conflict. Things can get cloudy, and I thought it was almost a reflection on you because you were both a producer and an on-air personality. So I thought that was an interesting talking point.
Well, I mean, I think they said this even like before I left, or I heard through. Doesn't matter, but like they're not planning on adding a mic. At least, I mean, last time. I mean, again, I don't speak to anybody over there, but like it's just not something that they would need to do or want to do.
It looks like he heard it through the grapevine. It wasn't directly addressed. And I think that's why when Julian may have asked for a raise that coincided with the volume deal or whatever that may have been, they laughed him out the room as if to say, oh, you think because you're an on air mic, you think because you're a personality, you deserve more compensation. But sorry, buddy, walk out through that door and never come back. Now, where everything ended is pretty fascinating to me because I also spoke with Julian about what he sees the vision for his podcast as, and he said that he's just making the content he wants to make.
Yeah, just having a good time.
What are some of the metrics you're using to determine like that?
My personal happiness. I don't really look at the metrics. I
Oh,
know where you're getting at. You can lead me down that path.
I'm.
I don't care. I don't need the money from the show. I'm doing it because I want to do it.
You know me. I'm on mince words. If I think I was like I still think what is valuable is you just keep doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah, I mean the impetus of me starting the whole podcast was I don't want those two guys to think that they owned my voice in this space. I just wanted to be able to create and do what I wanted, which is what I'm doing.
He also has seemingly found other sources of employment. So he's not necessarily banking on the success of something wrong with the pod, which is a good thing. You got to be happy when someone lands gainful employment. And in this case, it looks like that's exactly what Julian did. And one thing I find interesting when I talked to Julian on Spaces the other day is he kept mentioning mental health, mental health. So it's obvious that this took a toll on him. Anytime you lose a job that you were at for a significant amount of time, whether you hated it or not, there's a good chance that that became kind of your structure in life. And when you lose it, it can be a tough pill to swallow. But let me know what you think, listeners. Do you feel like at the core of the Rory, Mal, and Julian breakup was their opinion, or what I think their opinion was, that Julian wasn't doing his job in terms of the back end work and was prioritizing the front end work with his presence on air? I mean, I like I said during that space, it became clear to me. And with the hiring of Josh, the producer, I feel as if that is a rebuke of the structure that they had with Julian. They got someone from outside who wasn't a friend, who doesn't speak on air. This guy's a professional. Sure, sometimes you can hire your friends, but that leads to a lot of things. It can make the chemistry on air good, but it can also make the professionalism wane. Maybe things don't get edited as fast. Maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe you have to dog walk them through steps that you wouldn't have to do with someone like Josh, who works at the volume and has done a boatload of content. Well, that's it for me as far as this deep dive. Remember, these clips are from Spaces and they happened over the last few days. The whole conversations are on my Patreon. I will leave it linked in the description. I know some people are saying, why would you pay for the Patreon? But I do think my Patreon is a testament to the behind the scenes stuff that is happening at a lot of these podcasts. You know, when I speak with Mark Lamont on Spaces, when I speak with Rory and Julian on Spaces, I'm very intentional about trying to get to what it is to run a podcast. How do you edit things? And I think if you subscribe to my Patreon, you will get a better sense of that. You kind of will become an industry insider. All right, y'all. This is Danny from the Stop. Remember, let me know if you think Julian was let go because of the reason I stated, or if you felt like there was something else going on. Peace.